Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/entitled people. In today's episode, entitled woman confused on how elevators work. Entitled neighbor wants copy of grandma's will. A family member says a doctor is violating their civil rights by making them not smoke before a procedure. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. Entitled woman confused on how elevators work. A few days ago, I was at an office building and went to use their elevator. I was going down. A woman was waiting already, and the down elevator came. We both got in. She pressed a floor higher up, I pressed the floor going down. As I did, I told her, just so you know, this is going down. Well, I pressed the button first. Yes, she yelled that at me. I said nothing and stood in the back. The elevator closed. Lo and behold, it went down, like I told her it was doing. She cussed under her breath. As I was leaving, she said, "I hope you're happy." Like, I made the elevator or something. PPL are weird. I love this story more than I probably should. I love this comment almost as much as the story. I would love it a little more if the entitled lady actually read this and had an epiphany. Wow, this story has its ups and downs. Mostly downs. She's probably the same type of person that pushes her way into the elevator without letting people get out first. I had this happen once when I was the person exiting the elevator. Weirdest feeling in the world, just felt backwards. Reply. I'm really happy. I'm on the right floor. I had something similar once, because I was at a reception desk from which the elevator was visible. I was not only certainly building staff, but in control of the elevator. The woman was trying to access a floor which was only accessible from a different elevator, for which she'd need to go back to the lobby. She was livid with me. I explained I have no control over the elevators. She went back to the elevator and as luck would have it, the door started to close as she went through. She screamed at me like I did it as the doors closed. That pesky device out in the hallway that chimes and lights usually says which direction the elevator is going, but people would have to pull their heads out of their own asses to see or hear them. She definitely is the person to go up a down escalator, then complain that it's not going up. Entitled neighbor wants copy of grandma's will. When my grandmother was diagnosed with cancer, she opted for no treatment. She had watched her husband go through chemo, radiation and surgery, and he was miserable the whole time. She didn't want that for herself. Her family supported her. Over the next year, she gifted items to family and friends, told us to write our names on the things we want, take what we wanted, etc. There were conditions. No, you can't have that, it's a family heirloom meant to go to Aunt and her kids, or to Dad and his kids. We all knew what those items were and who they were going to, so that was easily settled after she died. The house was inherited by my father, who very suddenly and unexpectedly passed away 2 weeks later. I inherited the house at that point. The next door neighbor, we'll call him Todd, came over several times, upset that he and his kids, 21F, 19M, weren't invited to grandma's funeral. There wasn't one, we were all too busy reeling from my father's death, weren't presented with a copy of the will, it only included family members, and he knew grandma loved his kids like her own. She didn't. She complained about them coming over all the time, stealing her water to fill their pool, and she had to tell them to stop calling her grandma. He wanted to know if I would allow his kids to go through the house to see if there was anything they'd like to take to remember her by. Okay, first, dude. My grandma died 4 weeks ago. And, dude, my dad died 2 weeks ago. I thought he was awfully rude, but I offered to let them go through the boxes I had packed that I was planning to donate, and he was offended. I mean, mortified. He said his daughter and son had their hearts set on some items that were family heirlooms, and I literally laughed at him. I explained they were family heirlooms and would be staying with me, and two of the items had already gone home with my brother. He said my kids were her family and she would have gifted those to them. They should have been included along with everyone else when everything was divided up. Keep in mind that none of us knew this guy or his kids other than the neighbors next door. They were never at any family gatherings that were held at her house, and the only time I ever heard her talk about them was when she was complaining about them. Especially when she caught them using both her hoses to fill up their pool and then came over complaining because she had put locks on the outdoor faucets. Luckily, Todd's house was in foreclosure and he moved away about a year later. I have more stories, but those will come later. I would have slowly shut the door on him, making extremely uncomfortable eye contact with a twitch in my left eye. Literally WTF. Practicing that eye twitch in the mirror now. Kids don't get their hearts set on inheriting things. This was a grifter hoping to get something to pawn. I agree, although I didn't realize it at the time. His house was being foreclosed and his son had a drug habit. About a month before they moved out, my house was broken into, but I came home and they ran out the back door as I came in the front. The only thing they got was my laptop. Alarm system and cameras were up within 2 weeks of that. I always suspected it was the son, but there was nothing to point towards him. I really hope I never meet anyone that entitled. I can relate. Not even 24 hours after my grandfather died, a so-called family friend came by to ask my grandmother for half of the farm. His justification was that he did work on the farm, so half should be his. He did work, but it was small handyman projects, which he did half-assed. He had no part in helping with the daily operation of our crop farm. 18 days later, she passed away. 6 months later, we sold the farm. He had the audacity to show up again after she died, a threat of bodily harm involving a shotgun, and he left. Never to be seen again. Want to trace out your family tree? Don't pay 23andMe, just post on Facebook that you won the lottery. Sorry for your losses. Probated wills are public records. If he ever comes back, tell him to check the courthouse. A family member says a doctor is violating their civil rights by making them not smoke before a procedure. A family member of mine wants to get a cosmetic procedure undone after having it for quite a while. They went to a plastic surgeon to discuss their options and such, and the surgeon told my family member they want them off nicotine for 3 months before they operate on them. Which makes sense to me. Nicotine causes blood flow problems, and when you're undoing a big cosmetic procedure, you don't need any more complications added to it, you know? My family member came home and instantly barged into my room and ranted on how this surgeon won't undo the procedure, saying that the doctor not wanting to work on them is a violation of my civil rights, which is okay. Afterwards, they went on about how they had procedures while smoking, which by the way were emergency surgery to save their life. It just... How entitled do you have to be to believe smoking is a civil right? Think the doctor should do the procedure anyway, even though having nicotine in her system can risk her life even more with this surgery. They also go on about how smokers are discriminated against. Just... What in the heck? Tell your family member that stupid is not a protected class. Sir, would you like to retain your right to live after the surgery? Obviously. Then stop smoking. I have seen them start smoking again right after getting the heart-lung transplant, as soon as they are able to walk to the door of the hospital to get to the smoking area. The orthopedic surgeon who fused my back in 2012 refuses to see people who are smokers. Reason being they don't heal well and they, his generalization not mine, don't follow doctor's orders. As someone from a family of smokers, I have to agree with you. I can't tell you how many times I've seen family members go against orders or struggle to heal. Sounds like this entitled idiot wants the Darwin Award. My friend started having headaches out of nowhere, finally went to the doctor and was told she had an aneurysm that needed surgery to repair. She was a heavy smoker for easily over 20 years, so she had to cut way back or the surgeon wouldn't do it. The day for surgery comes and she goes in, the aneurysm bursts and she ends up dying on the table. Her husband demands an autopsy to make sure there was no human error. It came back that her arteries/veins were fried, heavily damaged from all those years of smoking. Your relative deserves the Darwin Award FRFR. The surgeon won't do the procedure because smoking has been proved to slow down healing and even possibly increase chances for wound complications. Nicotine is a vasoconstrictor, which is when arteries are tightened and narrow, allowing for decreased blood flow. Proper circulation is incredibly important for wound healing, as blood brings oxygen and nutrition to healing tissue. My father's heart doctor also specifically mentioned caffeine, in addition to nicotine, when he had his surgery. Nicotine, like most stimulants, is also a vasoconstrictor. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.